They didn't just want your love, they wanted your confidence, your glow, your peace. This wasn't a relationship, it was a silent war for your self-worth. At first, you didn't see it. You thought you were healing them, loving them, helping them grow. But slowly, your light started to fade while theirs grew brighter, because they were feeding on you. Every doubt they planted, every little insult disguised as a joke, was a weapon meant to break your reflection. But here's the truth they don't want you to know. You were never weak. You were being drained. And once you see that, the entire game changes. This is the story of how the chosen one reclaims their worth from the narcissist who tried to steal it. Stay until the end, because by the time this video finishes, you'll start to see your power again, and they never be able to take it from you. And if this message finds your heart, don't just scroll. Comment, "I remember my worth," and subscribe for more truth like this, because your awakening starts right here.
The battle doesn't begin with shouting or chaos. It begins quietly, almost invisibly, inside your own mind. The narcissist never storms in with open hostility at first. They creep in softly, wrapping their words in charm, admiration, and promises that sound like forever. You don't even realize the war has started, because the first thing they attack isn't your life, it's your inner voice. That small, sacred whisper that tells you who you are, what you deserve, and what feels right. Slowly, they start to drown it out. They question your memory, your feelings, your reactions. They twist your truth until you start to doubt your own reality. You begin to second-guess everything, not because you are weak, but because their manipulation is designed to make you depend on their version of the truth. This is where the real war happens, not in arguments, but in confusion. The narcissist thrives in your uncertainty. They feed on the moment you stop trusting your intuition and start looking to them for clarity. Every time you silence your gut feeling to keep the peace, you surrender a small piece of your self-worth. And they know it. That's why their calm moments feel addictive. Their rewards, given to keep you hooked, to make you chase validation that was yours all along. For the chosen one, this silent battle is exhausting because it isn't just emotional, it's spiritual. You start feeling the weight in your chest, the tightness in your mind, as though your own spirit is crying out to be heard. But that's the turning point, because when your soul begins to ache, it's not weakness, it's awakening. It's your inner self reminding you that your worth never depended on someone else's approval. It's the whisper trying to break through the noise again, telling you, remember who you are. The narcissist wants you to believe that your value is negotiable, that love, respect, and peace must be earned through obedience and silence. But the chosen one's real victory begins the moment they realize that peace doesn't come from pleasing others, it comes from returning home to yourself. You stop explaining, stop defending, and start listening to your own truth again. You begin to rebuild your voice, word by word, boundary by boundary. And each time you say no to manipulation, your confidence rises quietly, powerfully, like a dawn after a long night. This war was never about who wins or loses. It was about who remembers. The narcissist fights to make you forget your worth. The chosen one fights to remember it. And when you finally see that the battlefield was never outside of you, that it was always in your mind, in your silence, you realize something life-changing. They never had your power. They only had your attention. And once you take that back, the war ends, not in destruction, but in freedom. It was never about love, not real love at least. It was about control. The narcissist never truly wanted your heart. They wanted your confidence, the quiet strength that made you radiant before they ever arrived. That was the real prize, your sense of self, your ability to walk into a room and feel at home in your own skin. To them, your confidence was a mirror they couldn't stand to look into because it reflected everything they lacked. They didn't want to destroy you out of hate. They wanted to absorb your light, to fill the emptiness inside them. At first, they adored that confidence. They praised your independence, your clarity, your calm. But admiration slowly turned into envy. The very qualities that drew them in became the things they sought to control. They began planting small doubts in your mind, gentle at first, disguised as concern or advice. You're too confident. You think too highly of yourself. Maybe you should listen to me more. Those weren't random comments. They were strategic cuts meant to weaken your inner foundation. They wanted you to depend on their approval, to crave their validation more than your own self-trust. Because once they controlled your confidence, they controlled you. And so the game began. They would lift you up just enough to keep you hopeful, then tear you down when you started to feel strong again. You became addicted to their version of love, not realizing it was designed to keep you small. The narcissist's biggest fear is not losing you, it's you realizing that you don't need them. Your confidence exposes their illusion. When you walk in your truth, their manipulation no longer works. But here's the awakening. What they tried to steal was never theirs to take. Confidence isn't something someone can hand you or remove. It's the awareness of your own worth. And that awareness, once reawakened, is indestructible. When you finally see through their tactics, the entire illusion collapses. You begin to notice that the things they criticized you for were actually your greatest strengths. Your independence, your empathy, your clarity, all the qualities they tried to twist were proof of your power. Rebuilding confidence after such warfare isn't about becoming louder or tougher. It's about remembering that your value doesn't shrink because someone couldn't see it. Confidence is quiet, steady, and born from truth. And the moment you stop seeking permission to shine, the narcissist loses their grip completely. They can't drain what you no longer offer. So yes, it was never about love or power. It was always about control. But in the end, the chosen one wins, not through revenge or ego, but by simply remembering what was true all along. Their light was never the problem. It was the threat. Gaslighting is the narcissist's most dangerous weapon, not because it's loud or obvious, but because it creeps in quietly, like smoke filling a room. It starts with small things, a denial of something they clearly said, a dismissal of your feelings, a twist in a story that leaves you questioning your memory. You tell yourself, maybe I misunderstood, or maybe I'm overreacting. That's exactly how it works. It isn't just manipulation, it's psychological warfare designed to make you doubt your own mind. And once they control your perception, they control your reality. They don't just lie to you, they lie for you. They rewrite your experiences, reshape your memories, and make you question your own emotional compass. You begin to rely on them to tell you what's real because your own inner voice feels unreliable. That's the trap. Every time you ignore your intuition to keep peace, every time you let them redefine the truth, a small part of your confidence fades. You start walking on eggshells, afraid that your version of events is wrong, that you've somehow become the problem. And that's exactly where they want you, confused, apologetic, and powerless. Gaslighting is more than deception. It's a spell, a dark kind of hypnosis that turns light into fog. The narcissist uses charm, intellect, and emotion to keep you in that fog. They know how to cry when caught, how to make you feel guilty for even suspecting them. They project their wrongs onto you, saying things like, "You're too sensitive," or "You always imagine things." Slowly, your heart and mind start to drift apart. You no longer trust what you feel. You wait for their approval before believing your own experiences. But here's the truth the narcissist fears the most. Gaslighting only works when you doubt your own light. The moment you start to listen to your inner voice again, the one they worked so hard to silence, the spell breaks. You begin to notice patterns, not apologies. You start remembering conversations as they truly happened. You start seeing how much energy was spent trying to make you small, confused, and dependent. And with every truth you reclaim, their illusion weakens. The chosen one's awakening begins in that moment of recognition, when they realize it's not me, it's manipulation. That clarity cuts through confusion like sunlight through smoke. You start to see that your emotions were never overreactions. They were warnings. You weren't too sensitive, you were intuitive. And once that awareness takes root, the narcissist's most powerful weapon turns useless. Gaslighting may twist the mind, but it cannot kill the truth. And the truth is, your light was never gone. It was only hidden behind the fog they created. Once you remember your own voice, that fog burns away, and you finally see what they never wanted you to see. You were never crazy. You were being controlled. And now you're free. You were never chosen because you were flawless. You were chosen because your light holds something sacred, something powerful enough to expose what others try to hide. The chosen one's strength doesn't come from being untouchable. It comes from surviving what was meant to destroy them. Every betrayal, every moment of doubt, every attempt to break your spirit was not just pain, it was training. Your soul was being refined in fire, learning to rebuild even stronger each time it was torn apart. The narcissist never attacked you because you were weak. They were drawn to you because of your strength, your empathy, your presence, your ability to love deeply. That kind of light exposes darkness effortlessly. It makes deceit uncomfortable, manipulation visible, and insecurity impossible to hide. So they tried to dim it. They criticized what made you unique, mocked what made you kind, and twisted your gifts into flaws. But here's what they didn't understand. When they tried to break you, they were only helping you discover how unbreakable you truly are. Every tear you shed watered the roots of your wisdom. Every moment you felt abandoned was your spirit learning self-trust. Every silence you kept was a lesson in power, because sometimes strength isn't in fighting back, but in choosing not to let them change who you are. The darkness wanted to make you bitter, but instead it taught you compassion with boundaries. It wanted to make you afraid, but it awakened your intuition. It wanted to silence your voice, but it made your truth louder inside you. The chosen one's hidden strength isn't about force, it's about endurance. It's the quiet, steady resilience that grows in the shadows when no one is watching. It's the faith that whispers, "I will rise again."
even when everything seems lost. You don't fight to prove your worth anymore. You simply embody it. You walk away not out of defeat, but out of wisdom, because your peace is your protection. And that's what truly terrifies the narcissist, that no matter how many times they try to break you, you keep finding your way back to the light. They can steal your time, your trust, your energy for a while, but they can never steal your essence. Because the truth about being chosen isn't about superiority, it's about purpose. You were sent into the fire not to burn, but to glow, to remind others that even in the darkest battles, light remembers how to find itself. You are not what happened to you. You are what survived. And your light doesn't just return after the storm. It returns wiser, stronger, and too bright for manipulation to ever touch again.
Mental warfare is the narcissist's most calculated strategy. It's not about physical control. It's about rewriting your story until you no longer recognize yourself. They don't just want to influence your thoughts, they want to own them. They start by planting seeds, subtle comments, comparisons, doubts, all carefully designed to shift how you see yourself. Before long, you begin to question your abilities, your memories, even your intentions. They chip away at your truth piece by piece, until the reflection staring back at you feels like a stranger. That's how they win, by convincing you that their version of you is the real one. They rewrite your identity using guilt and shame. They tell you you're too emotional, too cold, too much, or never enough. They alternate between idealizing and devaluing you, keeping you in a constant state of confusion. You begin to live in reaction to them, shaping your tone, your choices, even your dreams around what will keep the peace. Your sense of self becomes blurry because the narrative you're living in no longer belongs to you. You start performing instead of existing. And that's exactly what they want, to make you forget that you ever had a story of your own. But here's where the awakening begins. There comes a moment when the chosen one pauses, and something deep within whispers, "This isn't who I am." It's a quiet but powerful realization that their voice has been echoing too loudly in your head. You start to remember your old self, the one who laughed freely, who made choices without fear, who didn't second-guess every feeling. You begin to sense that your worth was never theirs to define. When that awareness hits, the entire illusion begins to crumble. You start noticing how many of your beliefs came from their manipulation. How often you lowered your standards to protect their ego. You begin reclaiming your truth, not by fighting them, but by listening to yourself again. The moment you say, "My worth isn't negotiable," something powerful happens. The game ends. You stop explaining, you stop defending, you stop trying to win approval from someone who profits from your doubt. Mental warfare can be devastating, but it also reveals something extraordinary: the mind's ability to heal itself. Once you reclaim your inner voice, the narcissist's narrative loses its grip. You start to rebuild from the inside out, with clarity instead of confusion, self-respect instead of fear. You no longer need to prove your worth, you live it.
And as you rebuild, you realize that the truth they tried to erase was never gone. It was waiting for you beneath the noise. That's the chosen one's quiet victory. Not revenge, not confrontation, but remembrance. The moment you decide, this is my mind, my truth, my identity, the war ends, and you walk away, not broken, but reborn.
This war isn't just emotional. It's deeply spiritual. It's a battle of energy, vibration, and essence. Narcissists don't only manipulate words or emotions. They feed on something far more sacred, your life force. They drain confidence the way vampires drink blood, taking from your light to fill the emptiness inside them. You can feel it when it happens, that heavy exhaustion after every conversation, the sudden mood drop after being around them, the way your spirit feels dimmed for reasons you can't explain. That's not imagination, that's energy theft. They survive by attaching themselves to people who radiate love, empathy, and peace. Your light is magnetic to them. It gives them what they can't create on their own. At first, it feels like a powerful connection, almost fated. You feel seen, understood, even spiritually linked. But soon that warmth turns cold. You start to notice how one-sided it all is. They take your time, your emotional strength, your compassion, and return only chaos. Their presence feels draining because every compliment, every crisis, every manipulation is designed to pull energy from you and redirect it to them. You begin to mistake exhaustion for love. You think giving more will heal the relationship, but the more you give, the emptier you become. That's the trap. They keep you feeding them while convincing you that your depletion is proof of devotion. But the truth is, they are not feeding on your love. They're feeding on your self-belief. Every time you doubt yourself, question your worth, or silence your intuition, they grow stronger. And every time you choose yourself, they weaken. The chosen one's awakening begins when they realize this war was never about emotions, it was about energy. Once you start protecting your light, everything shifts. You stop over-explaining, over-giving, over-caring. You begin to notice how peace feels and how rare it was around them. You start grounding yourself, praying, meditating, setting boundaries, and saying no without guilt. At first, they panic. They test you, provoke you, try to pull you back into the storm. But it doesn't work anymore because the moment you stop reacting, you stop feeding them. And that's when their power collapses. They can't survive in your light without your permission. The very energy they once stole becomes a mirror that reflects their emptiness back to them. They lose access to your spirit because you've remembered something they never wanted you to know. Your energy belongs to you. You see, this was never about revenge. It's about reclamation. Taking back your energy isn't just healing, it's liberation.
You realize that your presence is sacred, your peace is priceless, and your light doesn't need to be dimmed to make others comfortable. The chosen one doesn't destroy the narcissist by fighting. They destroy their illusion by glowing. Because once you reclaim your energy, you stop being their supply and become your own source.
Self-worth is the quiet revolution that ends the war. It's not loud, not vengeful, and not dramatic. It's peaceful, calm, and deeply liberating. For so long, the chosen one believes the fight is external, against manipulation, lies, betrayal, and control. But the truth is, the real battle was never about the narcissist. It was always about remembering your own worth. The narcissist's greatest weapon is to make you forget it, to convince you that you must earn love, prove your value, and fight for acceptance. Once you believe that lie, you become trapped in their game. But the moment you see that your worth was never up for negotiation, the entire battlefield disappears. The narcissist thrives on dependency. They build an illusion where your happiness depends on their approval, where your peace depends on their moods. They make you chase what should have been freely given: love, respect, and kindness. They push you to overgive, over-explain, and overperform just to be seen. But you can never win a war that was designed to keep you small. You can only walk away, not out of weakness, but out of awakening. Because the moment you realize that your worth isn't tied to anyone's perception, their power over you collapses. Self-worth is not arrogance, it's remembrance. It's remembering that you were whole before anyone tried to define you. It's knowing that your value doesn't decrease because someone failed to recognize it. When you stop needing validation, you stop playing their game. You no longer bend to fit their expectations or chase their approval to feel enough. You start setting boundaries without guilt, saying no without fear, and loving yourself without apology. That's not ego, that's emotional freedom. The narcissist doesn't know how to handle someone who doesn't seek their validation. They lose control the moment you realize you don't need them to feel worthy. They try to provoke you, question your motives, even play the victim to pull you back into the cycle. But you don't bite. You no longer explain. You no longer react. You simply know. And that knowing, that unshakable sense of inner value, becomes your shield. It protects you from manipulation, from doubt, from every tactic designed to drain your light. The chosen one wins not through revenge, but through release. When you stop seeking closure and start giving yourself peace, you shift from survival to sovereignty. You no longer need to expose them, prove the truth, or make anyone believe your side. Because real freedom doesn't come from being understood. It comes from understanding yourself. You start to see how your sensitivity was never weakness, it was awareness. How your empathy wasn't foolishness, it was strength. And how your willingness to love deeply was not a flaw, it was a reflection of your divine heart. Reclaiming your worth doesn't mean pretending you're unaffected. It means healing without needing them to witness it. It means realizing that forgiveness is for your peace, not their redemption. It means looking in the mirror and seeing the person they tried to erase, strong, wise, and radiant. You stop being defined by what they did to you
and start being defined by what you've become after surviving it. When you reach that point, everything changes. The narcissist's games lose meaning, their words lose weight, their presence loses power. The drama that once consumed your days now feels distant, irrelevant. You begin to feel something you haven't felt in a long time, peace that doesn't depend on anyone else. You no longer chase love, you attract it. You no longer beg for respect, you embody it. You no longer fear being alone, you enjoy your own company because you've come home to yourself. And that's what true freedom feels like, not escape, but return. You return to your truth, your purpose, your center. You remember that your light was never meant to be dimmed to make others comfortable. You were not made to be someone's emotional supply, therapist, or scapegoat. You were made to rise, to heal, and to inspire others to do the same. The moment you honor that truth, you step out of the illusion and into alignment. Self-worth ends the war because it rewrites the rules. You no longer fight for love, you live from love. You no longer prove your value, you know it. The narcissist's control ends the moment your self-worth begins. They can't manipulate someone who knows their value, and they can't drain someone who no longer seeks their approval. You stop being a participant in their chaos and become a creator of your peace. That is the chosen one's victory, quiet, powerful, and eternal. You don't win by breaking them, you win by becoming unbreakable. You don't win by proving who they are, you win by remembering who you are. Because self-worth is the real freedom, the kind that can't be taken, twisted, or stolen. It lives within you, waiting for the moment you remember it was never lost.
The narcissist's defeat doesn't happen in arguments, revenge, or confrontation. It happens in silence, in healing, in the moment you truly understand that you never needed them to begin with. Their greatest fear has never been losing your love. It's been losing their control. They built their power not on who they were, but on what you believed about yourself. Every manipulation, every gaslight, every silent treatment, it was never about you being unworthy. It was about keeping you from realizing that you were powerful all along. The moment that illusion breaks, the empire they built on your energy collapses. In the beginning, they appear larger than life, confident, charming, magnetic. You mistake their intensity for depth, their attention for love. They study you carefully, mirroring your light back to you, making you believe you found your reflection in another soul. But what you're seeing isn't love, it's projection. They only reflect what they need you to believe so they can feed off the energy that comes from your belief in them. The trap begins when you start needing their approval to feel complete. That's how the web tightens, not through force, but through emotional dependency. The narcissist thrives in the illusion of power. They keep you trapped by making you doubt your instincts. They twist reality until you question your own memory. They make you apologize for their mistakes, beg for their affection, and prove your loyalty, while they betray yours. It's a cycle designed to make you feel smaller, weaker, and more confused with each passing day. Because as long as you're doubting yourself, you'll keep seeking answers from them, and that's where their control lives. But every illusion has a breaking point. For the chosen one, it begins the day the silence feels heavier than their presence. The day your soul whispers, "This isn't love, this is survival," that's the first crack in their facade. The narcissist senses it before you even act. That's why they panic when you go quiet. They feel your energy pulling away, your attention shifting inward. They will try harder. Fake tears, false promises, sudden vulnerability, anything to hook you again. But this time, something has changed. You've seen behind the mask. You've tasted the emptiness in their affection. You've realized that their love was never real, only your love was. And that realization is their true defeat. Not because you hate them, but because you've outgrown them. You stop playing the role they assigned you, the caretaker, the empath, the healer, the forgiver. You stop dancing to their manipulation and start walking in your truth. When you withdraw your energy, they lose their supply. When you stop reacting, they lose their stage. When you stop seeking validation, they lose their power. You don't need to fight them. Their collapse happens naturally because their entire existence depended on your participation. The narcissist's defeat is not a dramatic explosion. It's a quiet unraveling. It's the way their charm stops working, their manipulation loses effect, and their lies start sounding hollow even to themselves. They move on quickly, trying to replace you, to prove they still have control. But deep down, they know the truth. They can copy your kindness, but they can't replicate your light. They can mimic your words, but they can't embody your peace. They can find new people, but they'll never find your energy again. Because your energy came from authenticity, and theirs came from imitation. You don't need revenge to win. You win by healing. You win by choosing peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, self-worth over validation. You refuse to shrink just to make others comfortable. The narcissist's defeat lies in the strength of your silence, in your ability to rebuild without them, and in your refusal to carry the guilt they tried to plant in you. You learn that closure doesn't come from their apology, it comes from your acceptance. You stop waiting for justice and start creating peace. Over time, your energy transforms. You stop reacting emotionally to their games, and they can feel it. They try to trigger you through messages, gossip, or subtle provocations, but it no longer lands. You've reclaimed your emotional sovereignty. The person who once controlled your mood with a single text no longer holds any power. That calm, grounded presence you now carry, that's their nightmare. Because narcissists feed on chaos, and your peace starves them. What follows is the rebirth of the chosen one. You begin to see life differently, not as a battlefield, but as a garden that needed pruning. Every wound becomes a lesson, every heartbreak a teacher. You realize that their cruelty was the pressure that forced your strength to emerge. You stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start saying, "It happened for me." You see how their manipulation revealed your intuition, how their rejection pushed you toward self-acceptance, and how their betrayal taught you self-trust. The narcissist will never understand how you survived. They'll rewrite the story to make themselves the victim, but it doesn't matter anymore. You're not in the story they're telling. You've written a new one. And this new story isn't built on pain, but on power. It's the story of someone who walked through emotional warfare and came out radiant. Someone who was told they were too much and learned that their light only threatened the ones still hiding in the dark.
In the end, their defeat is poetic, not because they lost you, but because you found yourself. Their illusion depended on your blindness, and now you see clearly. They depended on your energy, and now you guard it fiercely. They depended on your forgiveness as a way to avoid accountability, and now your boundaries speak louder than your compassion. That's the moment the spell breaks, when your healing no longer includes them.
When silence becomes your sword, everything changes. The war that once raged through arguments, explanations, and endless emotional battles suddenly goes quiet. Not because you've given up, but because you've awakened. The narcissist's greatest weapon was never their words, it was your reaction to them. They thrived on your explanations, your defenses, your attempts to make them understand. Every time you tried to reason with them, you unknowingly gave them what they craved most: your energy, your focus, your attention. But one day, something inside you shifts. You stop chasing understanding. You stop trying to prove your innocence or worth. You fall silent. And that silence is not weakness. It's power. At first, they don't understand it. They push harder, provoke more, trying to bait you into the old rhythm of chaos. They use guilt, tears, rage, anything to pull you back into their control. But you don't respond the way you used to. You've stopped needing their approval, and that terrifies them. Because your silence isn't empty. It's full of clarity. It's the sound of someone who has finally remembered who they are. For so long, they trained you to doubt your intuition, to justify your every move, to carry the burden of peace alone. But silence is your rebellion. It's you saying, "You no longer have access to me." Silence is misunderstood by the unhealed. To them, it looks like surrender, but to the awakened, it's strategy. When you stop explaining, you take back your narrative. When you stop defending, you take back your boundaries. And when you stop proving, you take back your self-worth. The narcissist doesn't know how to fight that. They can argue with your words, twist your tone, manipulate your emotions, but they can't fight silence, because silence forces them to face themselves, and that's the one battle they'll never win. The chosen one learns that silence is not about ignoring someone, it's about conserving energy. It's about choosing peace over performance. You start to realize that your words were never the problem. They were just wasted on someone committed to misunderstanding you. So you stop giving explanations to people who've already decided not to listen. You stop seeking closure from the person who caused the wound. You stop proving your goodness to someone who benefits from painting you as the villain. That's when silence turns from pain into power, when it becomes your sword, not your cage. In that quiet space, something profound happens. You begin to hear your own voice again. The voice that used to whisper, "You're enough," now speaks louder. You start to feel your energy returning, your focus sharpening. You notice how much lighter life feels when you no longer carry the weight of explaining yourself. You start doing things for your peace, not for their approval. You begin to rebuild your inner world with boundaries that don't need to be announced and confidence that doesn't need to be proven. And the narcissist? They can't stand it. Your silence removes their control. It cuts off their supply. They're no longer the center of your world, and without that, they start to unravel. They'll call you cold, detached, or selfish, but deep down,
they know the truth, they've lost the game. Because silence means you've woken up from the illusion that you needed to fix what you didn't break. It means you've stopped playing a role in their story and started writing your own. Silence is not just the absence of noise, it's the presence of awareness. It's the moment you realize that not every battle deserves your sword, and not every person deserves your energy. The chosen one learns that silence doesn't shout, it simply is. You walk away without anger, without revenge, without explanation. You let the narcissist talk, twist, and project, but none of it touches you anymore, because your silence has built a shield around you, a shield made of peace, truth, and self-respect. And what they once misunderstood becomes your greatest strength. You no longer react to their provocations because you see through them now. You understand that every attack, every lie, every manipulation was a reflection of their own emptiness. You stop expecting empathy from someone who lacks it. You stop explaining kindness to someone who weaponizes it. Instead, you pour that energy back into yourself, into healing, creating, resting, and reconnecting with your light. Silence teaches you what words never could, that peace is not something you find, it's something you protect. The chosen one's silence is sacred because it comes from wisdom. It's the wisdom of knowing when to speak and when to let your absence speak louder. It's understanding that sometimes the most powerful statement is no statement at all. You no longer need to prove your innocence, your love, or your truth, because the truth stands firm even when unspoken. And when you reach that level of peace, something magical happens. You stop fearing their opinion. You no longer flinch when they gossip or twist the story. You stop caring who believes them because you know who you are. Your silence becomes your boundary, your healing, your crown. The energy that once went into defending yourself now goes into building yourself. The love you once gave them now returns home to you. So when silence becomes your sword, it doesn't just protect you, it transforms you. It cuts through the noise, the lies, and the confusion, leaving only truth behind. It's not about pride or revenge. It's about remembering that peace is power. The narcissist wanted your reaction, but you gave them stillness instead. They wanted your confusion, but you gave them clarity. They wanted your energy, but you gave them emptiness. And that's when you truly win, not by shouting louder, but by standing taller in silence. Because silence isn't the end of your story, it's the beginning of your freedom. It's the moment your soul stops explaining itself to those who never wanted to understand. It's the day you stop bleeding for validation and start breathing in peace. And when they realize their words no longer reach you, when they see you calm, unbothered, and whole, that's when they finally understand what your silence really meant. It meant you remembered who you are, and that you'll never forget again.
The rebirth of confidence doesn't happen in an instant. It's a quiet rising, like the first light after a long night. The chosen one doesn't simply survive the war with the narcissist. They transform through it. What once felt like destruction slowly reveals itself as rebirth.
Every insult, every manipulation, every heartbreak that was meant to destroy them becomes the fire that refines them. The narcissist thought they were breaking someone fragile, but they were unknowingly awakening someone unstoppable. The chosen one's confidence doesn't return as it once was. It comes back sharper, calmer, wiser. Their worth was never lost. It was only hidden beneath layers of pain, confusion, and self-doubt, waiting for the right moment to emerge. At first, it's subtle. The chosen one begins to breathe differently. The constant need to explain, defend, or seek validation fades. They no longer chase approval or worry about being misunderstood. Instead, they find comfort in silence. Not the silence of fear, but the silence of knowing. That's when the shift begins. Their confidence no longer depends on being seen. It grows from being felt. Every scar becomes a reminder, not of what was lost, but of what was gained. Strength, awareness, and unshakable self-respect. Confidence for the chosen one isn't loud anymore. It doesn't need to prove itself or outshine anyone. It walks quietly, grounded, steady, and clear. They've learned that real power doesn't come from being liked or praised. It comes from knowing who you are, even when no one believes in you. It's the moment you look at yourself in the mirror and no longer see the broken version they wanted you to believe in. You see the warrior that was always there, beneath the wounds. Every attack that once made you question your worth now becomes proof of your resilience. Every gaslighting moment that twisted your truth now becomes evidence of your clarity. Every betrayal that once shattered your heart now becomes the reason you learn to love yourself without conditions. The narcissist's greatest achievement was thinking they could destroy you, but their greatest mistake was underestimating how deeply you could heal. Because when the chosen one heals, they don't return to who they were. They rise into who they were meant to be. Confidence is no longer tied to perfection. It's not about never being hurt again. It's about knowing that nothing can keep you down for long. It's the quiet knowing that your peace is your power, and no amount of manipulation can take that away. The chosen one learns that their confidence doesn't come from external validation, but from divine alignment. It's spiritual now, rooted in truth, not ego. It's the realization that every trial was a test, and every test was shaping them into something divine. They stop needing closure from others because they've given it to themselves. They stop explaining their healing because not everyone deserves access to their process. They stop expecting the narcissist to apologize because they finally understand an apology from the unhealed will never bring peace. Instead, they turn their focus inward, nurturing their growth, protecting their peace, and speaking to themselves with the gentleness they once reserved for others. That's where true confidence blooms, not in loud declarations, but in quiet alignment with your own soul. You begin to move differently. You speak slower, think clearer, feel lighter. The same situations that once triggered pain now reveal peace. The same words that once hurt now hold no power. That's how you know the healing has taken root. You're no longer reacting to the world, you're responding to your truth. The chosen one starts to rebuild from the inside out. They rediscover the passions they once abandoned. They reconnect with their body, their intuition, their creativity. The fog lifts, and suddenly the world looks brighter. Not because it changed, but because their perception did. The power that was once projected outward now flows inward. The love that was once given without measure now begins to pour back into the self. And that's the real miracle, turning the same energy that was used to please others into fuel for self-growth. Confidence becomes a form of peace. It's not arrogance, it's awareness. The chosen one understands now that protecting their energy isn't selfish, it's sacred. They no longer tolerate half-love, manipulation, or emotional chaos. They know their value, not because someone told them, but because they've lived through enough to prove it to themselves. The world begins to treat them differently because their energy no longer signals, "Save me." It radiates, "I am whole." When the narcissist looks at them now, they don't see the same person they once controlled. They see someone untouchable. Their tactics no longer work, their words no longer sting, their presence no longer hold weight. The chosen one no longer needs revenge or recognition. The victory lies in their peace, in their glow, in their calm strength. The narcissist's defeat is sealed the moment the chosen one stops needing anything from them. Not love, not closure, not even understanding. This transformation isn't loud or dramatic. It's quiet, sacred, and deeply personal. It's the kind of strength that can't be faked or borrowed. It's earned through tears, through solitude, through choosing to rise again and again when no one was watching. Confidence reborn through that kind of fire is unbreakable. It's divine, it's magnetic, and it's free. The chosen one doesn't just heal, they evolve. They become the embodiment of lessons learned, wisdom gained, and love restored. They understand that real confidence isn't about being fearless. It's about walking with faith even when fear whispers in your ear. It's about knowing your worth even when the world tries to convince you otherwise. It's about realizing that your light was never meant to fit into their darkness. It was meant to outshine it. And so, the rebirth of confidence isn't just the end of the war. It's the beginning of a new life. A life where peace is non-negotiable, boundaries are sacred, and self-love is the foundation of everything. The chosen one no longer looks back with bitterness, but with gratitude, because even the pain had a purpose. It revealed the truth. They were never broken, only buried under illusions. And now, standing in their light, they know their worth was never gone, their power was never lost, and their confidence was never destroyed. It was waiting for this moment, the moment they finally remembered who they are.